What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Big Ten Football Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Guggenheim, and I got my man, Buckeye Boggs. Eric, how you doing tonight, my friend?
It is day one, day two, I guess you could say, of hate week for me.
Mm.
So I have been trying to practice on not saying words that start with a certain letter in the middle of the alphabet that we have red X's on, and it's Saturday feels really really far away at this point. So I'm very agitated. Like I just to fair warning, uh I cannot wait for that game to get here and for a lot of wrongs to be written correctly. Let's just say that.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I This is the one week, and Michigan fans, just be forewarned. That's the last time I'm going to say that word on this show because this is my favorite week of the past 4 years that I've done this show. This is my favorite because we talk about rivalries. We talk about, I think, the greatest rivalry in sport, but also just a lot of great rivalries. And we're adding to it, right? We get to claim Big Ten wise USC Notre Dame this week.
Hmm.
We get to claim Oregon Washington. We get to claim UCLA Fresno State. That's not a rivalry. That's just the game that's happening. But we get to claim some really fun rivalries now as the Big Ten Conference, and I'm excited to pick your brain as a fellow Ohio State guy who I believe we have the best rivalry in sport, but I think there's a lot of great ones out there. And so we're going to talk about that in this episode. Again, if you like this content, make sure to like, follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. Also, make sure go over to the OHIO podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe there. Great content, like really great Buckeye content, and I think it's a different avenue than a lot of your mainstream Ohio State stuff, but great analysis, great thoughts. I love your live shows when you're during the
Thank you.
games. Like and it's fun to see you guys just live watching the game. When did you guys start that, by the way?
We test ran that at the beginning of the season, and we were missing the key ingredient, and that was Corey. So
Mm,
Florida Corey joined us mid-flow in the season. We had him coming on Sunday nights. He's a podcaster who's been in it longer than you and I, Zach.
mm.
He was a former host of co-host of Johnny Bullet over at Scarlet and Great,
Yes, yeah. I
and
didn't realize that was the same guy.
yeah. And so that's Florida Corey.
That's
And he
funny.
was kind of just hanging out there in free agent land, and I scooped him up and said, "Let's go, let's roll." And he came on board about mid-season, and so after we did our test run on the live watches, Florida Corey has brought. He is the yin to Chris's yang.
Mm, that's
Okay,
fun.
and so I get to play referee with these two, and it is a ton of fun because I oftentimes I'm like Peyton Manning, when remember that Saturday Night Live skit when he's playing football with the kids and he's just drilling them in the head. Like I get to pick which side I want to be on sometimes, and just here's a lob toss and just watch Corey bang it off Chris's head, or then be like, hey, when the refs, I'm the ref and I'm going to turn around, I kick Corey in the guts, and here comes Chris off the top rope with a flying elbow. It's a lot of fun because I never lose
There you go.
till
It's
they
like
gang up on me.
it's like automatic quarterback in grade
Yeah,
school, except
exactly.
you're Peyton Manning, so it's good.
Well, yeah, and I'm the gym teacher, so I never lose. That's right.
There you go. There you go. So, well, why don't we make sure you guys, for those listening, make sure you like, subscribe, follow these guys at OHIO. Great show, great content, and you guys are offering memberships now as well. So,
Yeah,
really
three
good
ninety nine
stuff
a
there.
month. 3.99 a month. Will get you behind the scenes content only for our members. After you've been a member for a month, you receive our official membership T-shirt.
Whoa.
You get free shipping on our store. We have an online store that Chris runs.
Mm.
Chris has ran a Ohio State memorabilia store for a better part of a decade, and he gives you so he's got some of that stuff online available to our members with free shipping. So there's that. So there's we feel it's the best value out there for a Buckeye fan when it comes to YouTube membership.
Mm. There you go. So if you're a Buckeye fan listening, or if you're an opposing fan and you're like, but I want to know what's going on with the Ohio State,
Sure.
this is the podcast to follow.
And
So
we have regulars from other fan bases who attend our live shows and watch our content, even from our heated rival,
yeah,
because they have learned that Buckeye fans, we will shoot them straight. We're
yeah,
not going to lie to them like Scam Web. We are going to shoot them straight. And there's a lot of fans within our own fan base that do not like us, Zach,
yep.
because we
Because
shoot
we're
it straight.
because we're honest. Yeah. Yeah.
And some of them may or may not be on the coaching staff.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, we'll leave that spicy nugget there. There was a big game featuring Ohio State
Hmm.
this past weekend. Sammy Jacobs from Hoosier Huddle was on last week, and we talked a lot about their great season. And regardless of what happened this past weekend, I think it doesn't invalidate their season, right?
No,
They
and
10 to 0.
let me interrupt.
Yeah.
Their great season's not over.
Amen. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
a a what was it, 23-point loss in the shoe
Hmm.
in what was Ohio State's most complete game they've played all year
Yeah.
is nothing to should not in no way, shape, or form derail what Indiana has achieved up to this point and what they can still achieve heading into the postseason.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think you're leading me to where what I want to ask you is, like, should Indiana be in the playoff, barring they beat Purdue, which, let's be honest, I think we could beat Purdue. So barring they beat Purdue, and then, sorry, no offense to you Purdue fans out there, but then also, how good do we think they are? Like, was this more about Indiana not being good, or was it more about Ohio State starting to round into form? So two-parter there.
Yes. No, no, no,
There you go.
no. Let me start with Indiana first, if I may.
Yes.
We had the analogy this offseason. Chris and I we worked this formula a lot with this team because they were the most difficult team to
Mhm.
figure out in the Big Ten predictively going into the season.
Yeah.
And the analogy that we gave was, can a G5 All-Star team compete at a G4 level?
Mm.
Okay. The answer to that question is yes. They absolutely can compete at a G4 level. Can they win at the G4 level? Yes.
Do you mean P4 level? Power
Power 4.
4?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Power 4.
Yeah.
Sorry. P4.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Thank you. I group of 4, Power 4. You're right. Can they win a championship at the Power 4 level? The answer to that question is maybe,
Mm.
depending on the conference now. There is a huge difference between the Big 10 and the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC.
Yep.
There is a distinctive difference in my mind between what's being played in the SEC and Big 10 versus Big 12 and ACC. You put that team, Indiana, I'm talking about, in the ACC or in the Big 12, they can win that conference.
Yeah.
You put them in the SEC, you put them in the Big 10, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But is winning the Big 12 and the ACC good enough to get you in the college football playoff? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't sit there with a straight face if you're on that committee and tell me that you think Colorado, BYU, Iowa State, Arizona State are better than Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The only team in the ACC that I think has an argument is Miami
Yeah.
to be
And
better
even
than to be ranked higher than Indiana.
and even then, like, if you look at Miami's profile, is JR and I are doing we're doing our
Hmm.
top 12 this is airing on Wednesday, so it'll have happened Monday. But we're airing our top 12. I was looking at Miami. Miami has only played 2 top 30 teams. Their strength of schedule is 61. Indiana's is 68, according to Sagarin. So and Indiana is 1-1 against top 30 teams. Miami is 2-0. The one difference is that Indiana played the number 1 team, according to Sagarin. Miami hasn't played anything close to that.
Right. And so, yeah, they deserve to be in there. Now, where do I think they end up? I think they end up at 11. And I have theories why. Here's my theory why.
Yeah.
Gosh, I promised you I wasn't going to do this. I'm sorry.
No, this is good. This is good. I said some craziness.
I think the college football playoff committee is going to bow the knee to the networks.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think that's that crazy.
I think that's what's going on behind the scenes all over the place, including conferences.
Mm-hmm.
The networks hold the conferences, and I think the college football playoff committee by the balls. And because of that, you're going to see some decisions that because it's what the networks want. So my prediction is that Notre Dame gets 6th if they win out, and Indiana gets 11th, and there's your 6-11 game.
Yeah.
Because there is a debate amongst Hoosiers who's the better team in the state of Indiana.
Yep.
And that's a storyline that writes itself.
Yeah. Ironically, Eric,
but they're better than the 11th team in the nation, in my opinion.
Yeah. Ironically, right now, my playoff bracket, the way it would set up with my top 12, Notre Dame, Indiana would be the 8-9 game.
So same thing, just you got them at different numbers.
Yeah.
Well, I think Notre Dame is either the 5th or 6th best team in this bracket.
Yeah.
Because they could be no better than 5th. Yeah. But in my opinion, 5th is going to go to the loser of Ohio State, Oregon, the Big Ten championship game.
Yep. Yeah. As it should. Barring upsets this weekend, which we'll talk about.
Correct.
But so, and I think I appreciate how you're saying this, because I think what you're saying is what I felt with Indiana this past weekend was that they're really good.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran into a buzzsaw. And I felt like what the game, I forget who I was listening to, but someone made the point that how many teams would have gone up to Columbus this weekend and done any better than Indiana? And I was like, maybe Oregon, maybe Georgia. Like, I'm not sure Penn State. I'm not sure.
No.
I'm not sure.
Listen, Curt Cignetti is a head, and listen, I don't like the guy.
Yeah.
I don't. Plus, trust me, when he calls out my team and says we suck, I take that personal. I'm like the Michael Jordan meme here. I took that personally. I think Buckeye Nation based off of that, how they, the level of volume they had in that stadium.
Well, I think Ryan Day took it personally.
We know Will Howard did. Goodness sakes. Anyways, he is head and shoulders a better coach than James Franklin. And I've got more Penn State fans than I have Indiana fans. So this is not me playing loyalist here at all.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if Ryan Day leaves tomorrow and you say your two coaches you have to choose between are James Franklin and Curt Cignetti, it is not even a question for me who I'm talking to.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. So getting back to that though, like what has happened with Ohio State? Because I felt like they were really good. I felt like offensively they have still not played to me up to their potential offensively.
Yeah.
And yet everywhere else, I felt like, aside from that first drive, I was like, this is the best defense. This is the best special teams I've seen in, I don't know, at least defense, at least 5 years, and special teams 10 years.
Yeah. So two things happened in that football game Saturday that led to what took place. I know for a fact, and I was told that Ryan Day had placed multiple coaches on studying Indiana weeks in advance. Like,
Hmm.
you're not looking at anybody else. You guys look at Indiana. That's all you're doing.
Okay.
Now, usually that only exists for our next opponent. Ryan Day took this game as a playoff game, and rightfully so. He loses this game. That's the second loss. Everybody's saying, where does Ohio State belong in the CFP?
Hmm.
And he's out of the Big Ten championship. And the Boo Birds and the Fire Ryan Day and the Cooper 2.0 people are having a field day. So he took this game incredibly seriously. The fan base finally woke up. Big noon kickoff is a Ohio State has started so slow on noon kicks, and there is no home field advantage on a noon game in Ohio State. People are they're not liquored up. It's quiet for a giant stadium, concrete filled stadium with 100,000 plus people. It is eerily quiet in there on a Saturday morning at noon.
Yeah.
That was not the case this past Saturday.
Hmm.
I don't think half of Ohio State fans went to bed Friday night. They took this game like it was a prime time 7 o'clock kick. Those two factors, I think, played a big part in that game. Now, you asked the question, what has changed about this team? I don't know if you noticed, like we did, Zach, the team had juice in this game, like
Hmm.
they have not shown all year. I think, and this was my theory, and we kind of dissected this a little bit Sunday night. I think Ohio State's been sleepwalking a little bit, and
Hmm.
it took a coach like Kurt Signetti and a bunch of media people to doubt Ohio State for them to be like, "Oh no, you don't.
Hmm.
We're going to show you." And whether that's the fact that the coach listen, sometimes the raw coaches, it just becomes white noise.
Yeah.
You can only scream at a player so many times before they're like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. This is Purdue.
Right.
Come on." Right? Like, I don't think the coaches had to get the players excited for that game. And I don't think they're going to have to get them excited for this upcoming game. I
Hmm.
think the whole purpose for a majority, not majority, but a large portion of this roster that decided to come back and run this thing back in 2024 was for what we are now seeing happen. And
Yeah.
getting from that to here was kind of a pace yourself type of mentality, which cost them in Eugene a little bit.
Hmm.
But I predicted that. I kind of figured that would happen.
Yeah.
And they've been in playoff mode since Penn State.
Yeah.
And I just think that this team is they're here to silence the doubters, and they're like, okay, finally we've made it to the portion of the season that we came back to play. So
Yep.
let's roll.
Yeah.
So there's just a little bit of a different mentality, chip on their shoulder in this game, and you could feel it. The fans could feel it.
Yeah. And I think the thing that was very striking, I didn't watch a ton of content post game, but I did see them interview Jack Sawyer as well as Will Howard a little bit. And Will Howard talking about the team up north. I mean, his focus. I mean, I am very impressed with him from a leadership
Oh
standpoint.
yeah, he's
Like
phenomenal.
in some ways, he has that JT Barrett vibe to him.
Gosh, Chris would love you right now because I hate that comparison.
Oh, really?
Oh, I hate it. I hate that comparison so much, but everybody
Why?
gives it because to me they're completely different people. They're completely different players.
Well, yeah, I
And
totally agree. I
the JT Barrett was very much a very vocal leader behind the scenes, but publicly he was not. And I think Will's completely opposite. I think
mm,
publicly he is completely I'm going to be a leader. And then behind the scenes, privately, he's a little bit more of a professional. Let's just do our job. And
Okay.
yeah, and I'm going to leave it to some of the other guys in the locker room to scream and yell and things of that nature. But publicly, I think when the lights turn on, he shines the most.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that is a little different than JT. It's a little different.
That's
JT.
just my feelings, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that game, that team up north. Last week, the team up north, they did look impressive against Northwestern. Now Northwestern has not been great this year. But I felt like they were starting to find some things offensively. Let me tell you, and I'll tell the listeners and viewers where we're going with this. I want to look at this game from an X's and O's standpoint, and then I want to look at it more from the meta narrative of the rivalry historically, and then the microcosm of the past few years. Because I think there's both of those things are at play in this game. But just from X's and O's and personnel, like Michigan looked the team up north looked better than I think they have all season on offense. You know, that defense, they didn't have to really play the whole game. And so they looked lights out. As you know, that defensive line we predicted would be super nasty. But how real is the progress? Like, do they, in your mind, do they pose a bit more of a threat to Ohio State than maybe we thought earlier in the season? Or is it a
they
little bit of fool's gold?
they will always pose a threat to Ohio State. There are Let me dive into this for you.
Yeah.
Okay? There are two factions of Ohio State fans. Actually, three. There are the elders, the elder statesmen, the Woody Hayes, Earl Bruce. We remember the good old days, Ohio State fans. Okay?
Yeah.
Those are the ones who have laid the bedrock for this rivalry for us as Ohio State fans.
Mm,
Then you have my generation. We are kids of the 80s and 90s. So I was born
yeah.
in 1981. So I grew up losing to that team every year in the Cooper era. And I
Yeah.
have scars to show you. And so when this week gets here and this game gets here, I don't care what their record is. I don't care how
Mhm.
good we are. It doesn't matter. You throw the records out because I have too many L's hung on me on teams that should have won national championships in the 1990s for me to take this game lightly.
Yep.
And then that's the second Buckeye fans in this rivalry. Then you have the third. These are the kids of the millennium. All right. These are the kids who were raised under Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer, and they look at this game as it is their birthright to win.
Mhm.
And the last 3 years was simply because they cheated, and we're going to go right back to where we were. And then you have us who are a little bit older, who we look at them and go, "You guys don't remember the '90s."
Nope.
Okay? And then you have the elder statesmen who look at us argue with the kids who go, "If Woody Hayes was here, he would kick both your butts." Like, so it's this weird dichotomy that I run into as a Ohio State podcaster. I have to ask myself, which fan am I dealing with first to understand their perspective on this game and why they feel the way they do and what they're saying. So
Yeah.
let's get that straight first.
Yeah.
Okay. So understanding that you are talking to someone who was raised in the 90s, who has scars from losing this game way too many times. So that is why I say to you, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what they have done up the first 11 games up to this point. I will always have that feeling of dread. What if we lose this?
Yeah.
Because I've lived through it too many times
Yep.
when not expected to happen.
Right.
So, that being said, to me last week I almost could have told you they're going to destroy Northwestern
Mhm.
because of course they're going to play their best game right before they play us so that they have all the confidence in the world given back to their fan base so that it makes these next 6 days going into this game just this World War III again between two fan bases, right?
Yep.
Of course that was going to happen. Who are they?
Yep.
If Connor Stallions was still on that sideline, I would say they're pretty good because they're going to know exactly what we're doing. But he ain't there. And what the question is not so much who are they, the question is how much has Ryan Day changed? That's
Mhm.
truly the question here. Will he pucker up again? Will these guys look at that winged helmet and will they freeze in the moment again because they have doubt that creeps into their mind, or are they going to have the perspective and the mindset of we are just going to absolutely beat the living tar out of these guys for 4 straight quarters? And if that happens, if they take that Urban Meyer mentality, whoever hits the hardest wins this game. I think it's advantage Ohio State. I think we win, and I think we can win comfortably.
Yeah.
But if you don't think for 1 second that those guys are going to come down into the shoe and punch you in the mouth,
Yep.
you're naive.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that they're 6-5.
Yeah.
It
They need
doesn't matter that they look terrible against Indiana or Illinois or whoever else they lost to. It doesn't matter. It
yep.
absolutely does not.
They need to look at the team up north and think of them as better than Oregon.
Yeah, they should. It
Yeah.
does again. If you take the mentality that Woody Hayes had, the mentality that Jim Tressel had, that Urban
Yeah.
Meyer had about this game, that nothing else mattered. And I was saying this Sunday night on my show. Nothing else matters up to this point. What happened in Eugene? What happened a day ago in the shoe against Indiana? What happened up in Ann Arbor against the Wildcats for them? None of it matters come Saturday.
Yep.
None of it.
Yep.
That's why this is such a great rivalry. And let me say this as an Ohio State fan. What makes being an Ohio State fan great is the fact that you have someone who you get to hate so much who's so good.
Yep.
If Illinois was truly our rival and a little buck was all we had to play for, I probably wouldn't be an Ohio State fan because that sucks. No offense, Illinois. I know you guys got a good basketball team, but that would be terrible.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
this is what makes being a Scarlet and Gray fan or being a Maize and Blue fan so good. As much as we hate each other, we have to admit we're better because of each other.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I was say Brett Bielema this year might, that would be a fun,
Oh, he can just go
fun
with
rivalry.
another frozen pizza for all I care. Come on.
I feel like Brett Bielema has done a great job with Illinois this year, but I think to your point, I appreciate that because I think they're getting ready to give their best shot
Sure.
because they're
Absolutely.
like, despite the fact that they're 6-5, they're like, hey, when's the last time Ohio State's beat us? 2019? Like nobody remembers that on that team, like on either sideline.
Mm,
And so like everybody remembers that Ohio State has not beaten the team up north. That's what everybody remembers. And I think that there's some psychology there, right? That
absolutely.
and Sharon Moore, he apparently he took over play calling this past weekend, which showed because Campbell sucked at play calling. Um, there are questions about Will Johnson. There are questions about Colston Loveland. I think they're both going to play. I think they're playing coy about it. But there's some injury concerns for Loveland and Johnson, but I think they're just kind of being coy about it. Um, as you think about it, you kind of alluded to it already, but like how locked in is Ohio State? Because it's hard. I find it like if you look at their schedule, they had Penn State a few weeks ago, top 5 matchup. You had Indiana, top 5 matchup, and like you had McAfee and Desmond. Desmond always picks against Ohio State, but you had all these guys. You had Lee Corso pick against you, and so you had all this negative energy coming at you, and Ohio State I think rose up to the challenge quite nicely. how are they? Like, how locked in are they to the team up north this week?
They better be fully locked in.
Yeah.
Listen, Ryan Day's job's riding on this game. I said it. I said it Sunday. I'll say it again on your show. I, and I personally like Ryan Day a lot as a
Mhm.
man, as a play caller, as a quarterback developer, as a recruiter. He's done his winning percentage is fantastic.
Yep.
You can't lose this game.
Mhm.
He has you can't call on 2019 and say, "Well, yeah, I beat him in 2019." No one cares.
Yep.
Again, you said it. No one on these rosters were there. You can't call on 2020 and say, "Well, they skated. They used COVID as an excuse." And you know, I agree, they did, but they didn't. You didn't get to play them.
Mhm.
You have 3 consecutive losses against them. Well, they cheated. I understand that. You still lost.
Yep.
You cannot lose this football game if you're Ryan Day. I think the players know that. I think the players are not only going to play for themselves. I think you're going to see them play for someone who they love and respect in Ryan Day like they've never played before.
Mm.
I know I would.
Yeah.
I know I would. And I feel like last week was just a taste of the thunder that's coming this Saturday from not only the players and not only the coaching staff, but from the fans.
Hmm.
I think Jim Knowles has something to prove.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm concerned about is Chip Kelly. Buddy, you've coached in a lot of big games. You've been a head coach in the NFL. 2 different franchises. You've never seen nothing like this.
Yeah.
You better be ready. I think Ryan Day's probably had that conversation with him.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will share with you, and I shared this with our show, but I'll share it with you and your listeners and viewers as well. Something happened over the summer that is critical to I think the success of Ryan Day, this program, and this game coming up Saturday. When Ryan Day had the opportunity to hire Chip Kelly, he was able to hire his mentor. Okay. Chip Kelly was the guy who Ryan Day called on a weekly basis and talked to.
Mm.
When Ryan Day became his boss, he lost his mentor. Okay. It was purposeful. I think it was suggested, but purposeful that Ryan Day find a new mentor. He chose Jim Tressel as that person.
Hmm.
Been confirmed.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Jim Tressel and Ryan Day have become very close. Ryan talks to Jim, and I think one of the biggest purposes why was Ryan went to Jim and said, "How do I beat these guys?
Hmm.
How did you do it? How can I do that? How can I take on?" Because as much as Ryan Day would talk to Urban, he's never going to be Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
It's not in his DNA to be like Urban Meyer.
Mhm.
And that's probably a good thing for his wife and for his children, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's much more like Jim Tressel, but Jim Tressel was incredibly successful in that game as well.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe Jim Tressel took time after his retirement to hand Ryan Day the blueprint that he designed on how to beat that team. And Ryan Day has instilled that into his makeup as a head coach and and into this team. And I can give you one example that proves all of this to everybody. It's the entire revival that took place with this team with their relationship with Christ.
Hmm.
That was not an accident.
Yeah.
That is very much a Jim Tressel thing.
Yeah.
And I think it freed Ryan Day to be himself and say, "You guys do it.
Mhm.
Go for it. I know I'm not allowed as a state employee, but I'm not going to stand in your way, just like Jim Tressel didn't. And you guys go be you. And at the same time, us being us and not trying to be somebody else, we're going to, that's going to free us up to
Mm.
allow us to go into this game and win without feeling those jitters anymore of the
Yeah.
what ifs. Because at the end of the day, we're winners already. And I think that has been so freeing to
Yeah.
this program that people don't even realize it yet.
Yeah. Well, and I think, we had a great on
Yeah,
your
we
show,
did.
a great conversation about that, what was going on with Ohio State in terms of the faith component with Jesus. And if you guys want to check that, I'll put that in the description if you guys are interested in hearing about that. But I think there is something to be said too, how they've been so resilient this year. Like I feel like Ryan Day teams in the past have been like have kind of clenched
Oh
and
yeah, they
and
puckered
puckered,
bad,
and
bad.
not just with the team up north. Um, and I think the thing that's been really striking about Ohio State this year, aside from Oregon, ironically, they have been slow starters.
Oh yeah.
They've had to battle back from adversity
I
time and
this
time
team is
again.
I have called this team Rocky all year, and it's not from like the standpoint of they're the underdog. It's they need to get beat up to wake up. There's
Yeah.
that scene in Rocky 3 where Clubber Lane is just beating the tar out of him, and they're like, "Throw in the towel." And he's like, "No, no, don't. This is great.
Yeah.
Watch. This is what he wants." And then Rocky's like, hit me again." That's how this team plays.
Yeah.
That
I
is how they play. It's like you hit them, and they're like, "All right, let's roll." It's crazy to me. Now,
yeah.
hopefully, they come out swinging early. I mean, I don't, as
Yeah.
a fan, I don't like going into the first quarter going, "Gosh, this is too tight," right?
Yeah.
But that's how they've played all year for some weird reason.
As soon as you said that, I thought of the exchange between Apollo and Paulie. It's like, oh, he's getting killed out there. No, 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 he's getting mad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, exactly. That's who we are.
yeah,
Yeah, that's exactly who this team is, man.
yeah. I I just I feel like Cody Simon has been an embodiment of that. Like that dude.
Oh,
I mean, this past Saturday,
he played unreal.
that's the best I've ever seen him play.
It's the
I
best.
was
It's the best game we've had from a linebacker at Ohio State.
since Shazier.
Maybe it's been a long time since we had
Yeah,
a linebacker dominate like that. And
yeah,
listen, and that's not to take anything away from Sonny Styles. He had a great game too.
yeah. I was saying Styles. I feel like is finally starting to
He's start
ascend.
he's starting to play.
Yeah,
He was trying to learn the position. He was thinking too much. He's just playing now.
yeah,
And hopefully they can play loose and fancy free Saturday as well.
yeah. You were talking before about the rivalry and the impact on this game. How, you talked about the 90s, but how did you really get
Oh,
indoctrinated into this? And
yeah,
like and how have the
good
past
choice of
3
words.
yeah. How'd you get indoctrinated and like how have the past 3 years changed it for you?
Mm, okay. Let's take the first part of that question because this is a great story, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously, my dad, who's a great basketball coach.
Mm,
Um, I grew up a gym rat, and so Ohio State basketball for me when I was a kid was just as important as football. In fact, I remember going to um, just as many basketball games to St. John's Arena as I did the Horseshoe and watching football games. And as a kid, I actually was more into the basketball games than I was the football
mhm.
games. But that's neither here nor there. So my dad was a huge Ohio State fan, and I remember this so vividly, Zach. I was in second grade, and I had a second grade teacher who I really really liked, and she came on rivalry week. She wore a big M sweater to school when everybody was wearing
Oh
Ohio State stuff.
my goodness.
And I went home And I told my dad that, because of my admiration for my second grade teacher, I was going to root for that team up north. And he said, absolutely not. You can pack your bags and you can leave. So I had my little blue Superman suitcase, and I stuffed it with probably 2 pair of underwear and some shorts and some socks. I'm crying, because my dad just kicked me out of the house and I have to run away. Um, I made it to the mailbox and I turned around and I remember him telling mom to pack me some sandwiches because I was going to be hungry out there. I turned around, I came home, Zach, and I apologized to my father. And as straight faced as you could be, I accept your apology. Don't you ever say that in my house again. So, and when you say the word indoctrination,
There you go.
that is absolutely true. And then as I grew older, my older cousin, Ryan Miller, who's right there,
Yeah.
Ryan Miller, who, by the way, grew up and played his high school ball in the state up north, mind you,
Mm.
who was a fan of that team up north, was not recruited by that team up north, but was recruited by John Cooper in Ohio State and Notre Dame, by the way. And he came very close to becoming a Fighting Irish football player, but decided to break the mold. Was one of the very few players who left the state up north to become Ohio State Buckeye. And it was the year his senior year, 1996. I was in 8th grade. We won the Rose Bowl against Arizona State.
Oh
And
yeah.
from that moment on, when we won that game, I got to see my cousin in Pasadena on the Rose Bowl field. Now we weren't there; I was watching from home.
Yeah.
But to get to see that in 8th grade, that that moment is when I was baptized. I was never looking back
Yeah.
as a Buckeye fan. And so, yeah, that was the moment that I was like, yeah. And I had gone to games, like I said,
Yeah.
plenty of games and things as a kid. But you're a kid and you're kind of watching, you're because your dad's watching or your family's watching, or you go to watch parties as a kid, but you play with the other kids more than you pay. That night was the night I will never miss another game. I'm locked in,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's how I became a fan.
That's
Now,
cool.
how does the last 3 years affected me? Well, as the owner and host of an Ohio State podcast, let me tell you, the content I have been able to create from this has been unbelievable. Been great for the old numbers, right?
Yep.
Um, I think we will one day look back at the last 3 years of the Jim Harbaugh era as one of those time, like it'll be right underneath. If you look at Ohio State team up north history and you read about it, you're going to
Mhm.
read about the 10-year war, and then you're going to read about the 3 years Jim Harbaugh cheated.
Hmm.
Right underneath that is the impact that these 3 years will have on this rivalry. I think it's that great.
Mm.
um Now, individually, there's things that Ohio State and that team up north will talk about historically, and they go back to the time when they had before the face mask, all the championships they won, right? Um, we have Archie Griffin and those stories, right? Um, Jim Tressel, those things to
Mhm.
talk about, Urban Meyer. But I think when you look at the two schools and the teams and the rivalry combined, you'll see 10-year war, and right underneath that, the last 3 years of Jim Harbaugh and the cheating scandal.
Mm.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the NCAA is going to take that championship away and take the wins away and give them a postseason bowl band, and I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, I think everybody is truly speculating right now.
Yeah.
And listen, as we record this on Monday, and by the time people watch this on Wednesday, it might be the news might have broken. There might be something that we don't know right now that could have happened. So
Yeah.
disclaimer here, right, guys? But that's where I think historically that is going to place in history. And to think, Zach, we got to live through that
Yeah.
is wild.
Yeah.
And podcast to report about it and talk about it. There's going to be times I'm going to be talking to my grandchildren and be like, listen, let me tell you about this crazy hypocrite named Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
Yeah.
and then on the same side, there's gonna be some guy who lives in that trashy state up north who's gonna be like, let me tell you about this saint named Jim Harbaugh. Like, it is gonna be wild to
Yeah.
watch these
Yeah.
two fan bases twist these stories back and forth
Yeah.
over the course of the next few decades, if time tarries that long.
Yeah.
uh, that we will get to do that, and to me, that is wild and really cool, actually.
Yeah. And I think I appreciate how you wrap that up at the end because I think that's what makes this rivalry so unique. And I think you see it in others. Like you had Auburn, Alabama, you had the guy that poisoned the tree.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, people do dumb things, but like 10-year war, I still remember the 2006 game of the century
oh yeah,
where Bo passed away a couple days before. And
yeah.
they're like, it wasn't just, I mean, it was one versus two, but it was like, it was the end, like the true end of an era because Woody had
Yeah.
passed away
Well, and here's
20 years
here's the thing.
before.
Here's the thing about that, Zach. So, um, and I, if you ask me what would be your dream job, Eric, it would be to be the next Ohio State football historian, to be the next Jack
Mm,
Park.
yeah.
I have every one of his books, and I've read them multiple times, mind you. And every offseason, when football ends, here's how I get past the end because it's very depressing, right?
Yeah.
Basketball, I love basketball, so it does a good job of kind of distracting me from the fact that football's done. I always pick up another book, Ohio State book, and start to read again.
Mm,
And Jack Park, he tickles an itch for me that no other writer does for Ohio
mm,
State, because of his love of the history. And it's such a refreshing thing to go back and start to reread the history every single offseason. But
yeah.
um, yeah, to think that 2006, one versus two, right? Game of the century. Ohio State Notre Dame back in the 40s was considered the game of the century.
Yeah.
And I, we Ohio State's been a part of the game of the century multiple times. And so, we look at 2000, that was 18 years ago.
Hmm.
How old were you in 2006?
I was a junior in college. I was
Okay.
22.
I was
No,
grad
I was 20. I was
I
20.
was graduated, married, had a kid
Mm,
already.
wow.
Yeah.
So we're 5 years apart, I think, because you said
Yeah.
81.
Yeah.
Yeah, 86. Yeah. So I was just a little younger than you with those 90s demoralizing losses, but
Thank your lucky stars.
yeah. Yeah. The 90s
But
were
I got
rough,
to be in
man.
college when Jim Tressel was coach, so
Yeah. There
there's
you
that
go.
too.
There you go. That's fun. Um real before we move on to maybe other rivalries that we're excited to talk about, do you have a game prediction for Ohio State team up north? Like what are your thoughts on this
I'm
game?
working on it. This is Monday night. I need to talk. I wait until after we do our preview because I need to get from their perspective first. I always like to take, I did that with Sammy last week from the Hoosier Huddle.
Yeah.
And then when the news broke about the injury, to Seth McLaughlin, and that was such a gut punch that night, Zach.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was a gut punch.
Yeah.
And that almost changed my prediction, but I stuck with my prediction. I was glad I was wrong because I had 24-17 Buckeyes. I thought it was going to be very, really much closer than what it was.
Yeah.
My inclination is that just like last week against the Hoosiers, our depth is such an advantage to us,
Mhm.
which really angers me that we just didn't use it very much at the beginning of the year, especially on the defensive line.
Yeah.
That we can be so much more fresh than our opponents by the end of the fourth quarter, especially defensively, that we just wear on people.
Mm.
I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I told you, I remember telling you this. They were an injury or two away from being incredibly mediocre this year.
Mm-hmm.
I was right.
Yep.
What I did not anticipate was the majority of their woes coming from how inept they would be creatively as an offense.
Yeah.
I knew they were going to be good defensively, especially up front,
Yeah.
and they still are. Let's not
Mm-hmm.
let's not kid ourselves here about that.
Yeah.
But can they withstand 4 quarters of our defense leaning on them? The only team who has done that is Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And I am willing to bet, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Oregon offensively is light years ahead of where they are in Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
And defensively, Oregon, I think, collectively is better than they are
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
collectively.
I'd agree with that.
And we still scored 31 on them in their house in a hostile environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jim Knowles, Larry Johnson, and Ryan Day had some coming to Jesus moments and have corrected themselves, course corrected themselves.
Yeah.
And I think what you saw from Ohio State defensively after that first drive, because I think they went in with the game plan. Let's be Manila defensively. Let's see if we can maybe just out athlete these guys and then unleash the hounds next week. When they realize, nope, can't do that. Let's unleash the hounds. That's what you're going to see for 4 quarters
Yeah.
against the Maize and Blue. Now, Sharon Moore as a play caller, I think he can kind of play off of that aggression a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the running backs to do it. But I think our linebackers will be ready for that.
Yeah.
And I think we have the missing piece that we didn't have last year defensively to stop that. And he's sitting back there in safety and Caleb Downs.
That dude's incredible.
Now, that's one piece of information that you can look at and analyze, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just analyzing that. Now let's take into account the Will Howard effect. It is no secret I am not a Kyle McCord fan. You mean to tell me with that roster you had last year in your house with that guy at quarterback and we only lost by 6 and you're going to come in our house with Will Howard at quarterback with all these guys returning defensively and your with your roster this year and you're going to beat us in our house?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen. I think we win by 2 scores at least.
Mm.
So if you're going to hold me down to a score, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 13 to 31, 32, 30, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
31, 13.
Yeah.
It's not going to be hang 100 on them, Ryan Day. That's not going to happen. There's too much pride in the guys wearing those jerseys to let that happen. Um, Talking about our rival.
Yeah.
But I feel if you just analyze those pieces of information I just provided for you, I feel like Ryan Day is going to get the Wolverine off his back.
Yeah. One thing I think I was talking off the air with JR on Sunday. I found it odd that against Northwestern, Ohio State really worked on the deep passing game just for it not to show up against Indiana. And I think uh Wink Martindale loves to be aggressive. I think he likes to blitz. And I think that's going to cause some issues because I think it's going to leave some one-on-one matchups with Emeka and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. And I think there's a part of me that wonders if they really worked on the deep passing game, not for Indiana, but for Michigan. And
I like that.
I, if that's the case, I think I could see a pathway for a much higher margin. But there's a couple ways to get there for Ohio State. One is that if they actually do jump on them early, like if they get up 14-0, it's over. Because then Michigan's got to. It completely takes them out of what they want to do, which is short passing game and rely on the run game. But I say that with trepidation because I know how this game can go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I'm making our pick on Tuesday, which will, as of dropping this, it'll be out there. So I won't say it here. So go check out the Big Ton Huddle for my prediction. But yeah, let's talk. I appreciate your insight on this game and your thoughts on it. There's some other fun rivalries in the Big Ten, and
Ohio State, Oregon. I agree. It's going to be great. It's the
not that one. No.
Oh, okay.
Right.
My bad.
So this is our lineup for this weekend.
Yep.
Minnesota, Wisconsin, battle the axe.
Great rivalry trophy. For people who live in the coldest climates in the Big Ten, it's something for them to really chew on all winter long. Luke Fickell has been a complete failure in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I'm just calling it like it is.
Yeah.
It stinks he lost his quarterback. I would have liked to see what he would have been able to do with the quarterback healthy all season. Minnesota, much better than I thought they were going to be this year, but I kind of figured that it was time for PJ Fleck to kind of have the weird season by the weirdest coach in the Big Ten. It kind of seems to happen. Luke Fickell has to win this one.
Yeah.
Or the seat's hot in Madison for him.
Yeah.
But I love that rivalry trophy.
I think it's the best trophy in all of college football. It's an axe. Like,
it is cool.
You win a weapon. Like,
yeah. Like you could kill someone with that trophy. Like, let's be honest. Like, no, listen, I think the dumbest trophy for the best rivalries got to be Nebraska and Iowa. Now, I like what it stands for. Don't get me wrong. But that thing should be a bloody sickle. And that rivalry should be called the Children of the Corn. Come on. Like, they always complain about who's got the best corn. Like, it's the stupidest argument, but I love it because it's so petty. And so, and I can't stand Iowa. So I am such a Nebraska fan for this game. Plus, it's played on Friday. It's on Black Friday. Like, that thing should be a sickle that's bloody. Like, talk about another weapon, right? Like, call that thing the Children of the Corn. I love that rivalry, though.
I think so. I think this is the best Friday in college football in a long time. Ooh. Because you get two, like, their old Big Ten West rivalries. Like, and Nebraska and Iowa's really turned into one. Like, I think
it's not old, it's new, but it's great.
Yeah, it's so great. But like at 12 o'clock CBS, which I know for Midwesterners, Minnesota and Wisconsin, they're like, it's an 11 a.m. game. But like you get a CBS quality production at 12 o'clock, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and there's real stakes for both of those teams. And then NBC, 7:30, you get Nebraska, Iowa.
Under the lights. Oh, it's under the lights this year.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be beautiful.
It's at Kinnick. Oh. So you get the first quarter wave.
Yes, which makes me freaking cry every time, Zach. Every time. I'm like, it's on my bucket list, and I can't stand Iowa. It's personal
Yeah.
for me. It's personal reasons. I can't stand it, but I gotta go to Kinnick just to wave. I've got to do that. Jump around is old. It's overrated. People are like the other team jumps around and like takes it over, and it's
Yeah.
like literally the kids stay to third quarter to jump around and leave. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
The wave, it's early in the game.
Yeah.
Everybody stops and does it.
Yeah.
It has such a great meaning.
It's funny. I
That
always
gets
think
me
of
excited.
2017 when like everybody's talking about the wave and Urban Meyer wave into the kids, and then Iowa just bludgeons them to death for the next 3 quarters. And you're like, I feel like this is a mental, like it works, but I'm like,
What do you
I
think
know.
Urban was thinking when he was eating the pizza in the hallway after that? Man, I, them kids. I'm sure glad I got to wave at them. Like, that was the last thing on his mind. I promise you.
Yeah, oh,
But
yeah, no,
gosh,
yeah.
dang, yeah. I got to get to Kinnick to do that though.
Yeah.
My son's got to do it.
Has
My
he?
son, yeah, my son's been
Oh,
there and got to do the Kinnick wave, and yeah, he's like, Dad, it's awesome.
it's the best and most. I think it's the best meaningful tradition, right? Because it's
Oh
like
yeah.
you have a lot of fun, like a lot of fun costumes, but that like, and especially on Thanksgiving weekend, like you get to wave to those kids. You get to,
All right,
it's just awesome.
bucket list. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Would you rather be inside Children's Hospital with the kids when the whole stadium's waving and get to watch the kids wave back, or run out in Colorado with the stinking buffalo?
Oh, Iowa, hands down.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't die? Like, there's not a danger of
Right.
death?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and I don't like,
I love that though. I love running with a lot. Like that
yeah.
thing will kill you. And they're
Yeah.
like, let's let it out in the stadium. Let's do this. Like,
You know, so for me, I don't think I've seen it enough for me to care. But like, I feel like if I watch it more, then maybe I'll care more like you do. But I just don't like. I don't watch a lot of Colorado, so I'm like, eh.
I want to watch Deion Sanders ride the thing though. That would to me, come on,
That would be that'd be something.
with his cowboy hat.
Yeah,
Yeehaw! Prime
gets
time.
thrown off the buffalo. Here lies Deion Sanders, killed by rodeo. Oh man. All right, so Friday, amazing, amazing appetizer
Yeah.
for I think a great weekend. We talked about Team Up North and Ohio State. Illinois Northwestern, like I know Northwestern has not had the season that they've had.
Tremendous basketball rivalry.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna say.
Okay, but I mean for Illinois, I'm gonna force you on this one here. It's a crosstown rivalry.
Cross state rivalry. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, cross state. Sorry, it's gonna be in Wrigley,
Yep.
which is really cool. And Brett Bielema is going for 9 wins, which I don't think I had Illinois bowl eligible when I predicted this season. So like, I know you had some choice words for Illinois earlier, but like,
Illinois is going to beat them.
yeah, I agree.
I don't think there's. Listen, Northwestern, they check. It stinks for them that they had to finish the year. Ohio State, Team Up North, Illinois.
That's
That's
tough.
3 of the top 5 teams in the Big Ten, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Wait, well, hold on. You would say Team Up North is a top 5 team in the Big Ten?
Right now, I think they're the second best team in the Big Ten, in my opinion, because we're playing them this week.
Well, that's fair.
But that's
fair.
yeah. After I said top 5, I realized I was probably wrong. I think I have in my power rankings, I have them at 6th.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think.
they can beat you up physically.
I think I have Illinois at 5. Yeah, let me go through them. Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, Illinois. Yep, they're at 6th. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So, but yeah, Illinois, like great season for Brett Bielema. Great
Mhm.
season for them, and David Braun, they got a couple wins I wasn't expecting. Like I thought Northwestern was going to be really bad.
They probably are going to go to the best bowl game that's not in the CFP out of the Big Ten teams.
Illinois, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I probably would it be Citrus or Citrus a CFP game this year?
I haven't looked at the bowls yet. Which can I vet on that for just 1 second?
Go for it.
I love the fact that the CFP is going to be must watch television. It's great, but it's going to really hurt the bowl season, man. And
Yeah.
I loved bowl season. It's so college football. It's so
Yeah.
like unique to sports, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that you could have a team like, take Coastal Carolina for instance, and this is like their Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just means everything to them. And it really started to stink when you had players starting opt out about a decade ago,
Yeah.
and it really ruined it. And so this is what college football had to do to keep that from happening. Which, by the way, they're not done. It's going to go to 16 teams, guys.
Yeah.
It's going to. It's what Division One AA does, or whatever they're called now.
Yeah.
It's what Division Two does, Division Three does. They all go 16 teams. It's
Yeah.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah. It is Citrus is not a playoff game. So I think they will probably go to the Citrus Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, unless if somehow a Big Ten team of the top four gets left out, which I don't think
I
that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like
I don't see it happening.
unless if Maryland upsets Penn State this week, which I don't think is going to happen.
There ain't no
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
Maryland's awful.
Speaking of rivalries that aren't, sorry, Maryland, Penn State. We're just going to move on. That's
Yeah.
I this is a game I'm really intrigued about. Notre Dame USC. Again, we're not really giving picks. We're just kind of giving leanings and thoughts on the game. This game, I feel like in the 2000s was always a like a fun rivalry with a lot of stakes because you had those Pete Carroll teams, and
I'm going to make a statement about this that I think is going to be a hot take for you.
Okay, go for it.
Notre Dame USC is equivalent to Ohio State Oregon when it comes to the rivalries, in my opinion. It's historical more, I get it, but it's Midwest, West Coast, top tier, who's better typically, and I think that is what Ohio State Oregon can can become is
Yeah,
Notre Dame USC.
yeah.
Um Lane Kiffin might be on his way out. I think Lane Kiffin's going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm. You talking about Lincoln Riley?
Sorry, Lincoln Riley.
I was like,
they're
yeah.
one and the same, right? They're
Yeah.
both kind of.
Lane Kiffin coached at USC once.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lincoln Riley. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley. I think he's got one foot out the door,
Mm.
and I think Notre Dame, who's playing really well right now,
Yeah.
is going to go to USC and is going to smoke them. I mean, put a beat down on the Trojans of biblical proportions. Speaking from a Catholicism standpoint here, we're talking don't bother coming back to the office the next day. Clean out your office
Okay.
now type of
Wow.
loss.
So you think that USC, even with maybe a more talented roster, you think because Lincoln Riley is checked out, it's done.
I think it's done. I think Notre Dame, who's got so much more to play for, if they with their loss to Northern Illinois,
Yeah. They need to
a
remove
loss
the
to
doubt.
USC could really hurt them.
Yeah.
And the way Marcus Freeman has got this team playing,
Yeah.
I think Notre Dame goes into LA and just destroys them.
Yeah. I feel awesome. Like I'm not a big Notre Dame fan, but I feel so good for Notre Dame after what Brian Kelly did to him. And
Brian Kelly's trash, dude. I cannot stand that guy.
I love that Brian Kelly has, like, no offense, I don't want to wish ill on anyone, but like it's like he went to a greener pasture and they're now 7-4, and I I hate, and I love what Marcus Freeman has done. Like he has been just such an upgrade despite the crazy losses. Like he's been a huge upgrade at Notre Dame.
One of the episodes we do every year in the off season, very early on in the off seasons, we rank all of the all of the former Ohio State players who are coaches today in order of who's the best out of the top 10. We rank the top 10. You got Eddie George,
Yeah, oh
Brian
yeah.
Hartline, James Laurinaitis. These are, Luke Fickle, Mike Vrabel, Marcus Freeman. You have all these names of former players who are coaching in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the reason why we do that is because there's always that potential, right?
Yeah.
Of if something were to happen, who's on that list. And it has been amazing to watch Marcus Freeman climb that list. He takes it over. He's going to be the number one guy, I think, after this
Oh
year
yeah.
in off season.
Yeah. He's well, and I think you're right. Like I think Notre Dame could be really dangerous in the playoff because they're physical.
I know this much. I would not want to play them in round one in their house.
No, 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 no. No thanks.
If
Yeah.
if you're Penn State and you draw Notre Dame, or if you're Indiana and you draw Notre Dame, nice seeing you. See
Yeah.
you later. How about
Yeah.
this? How about this matchup? Georgia has to travel to South Bend, Indiana, take on the Irish in December.
That's I think that is possible. Although I'm curious to see what the committee does with Georgia this week. Because I'm not it'll be interesting to see what they do. I would my guess is Penn State hosts a playoff game because just where they're ranked right now, and they're not going to lose to Maryland. I think they're going to host one, but I think you're right. I think Notre Dame's going to host a playoff game. I'll tell you where else I'd be concerned, and this is just as an Ohio State guy. If Ohio State wins round one or wins the Big Ten championship, say they beat the team up north, beat Oregon in the rematch,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get a Notre Dame team at the 8 seed, and that's their matchup. I'm like, I'd actually probably prefer Alabama or Georgia to Notre Dame in that quarterfinal. The way they're playing right now.
You got me. I don't know that I want to talk about this. Is a safe space, so I can talk about this.
Yeah.
There's a world that exists where the fifth seed is actually the best place to go.
Oh, I don't think that's a hot take.
And are you willing, as an Ohio State fan, to lose the Big Ten championship game against Oregon if that means you get the fifth seed and get to play Boise State or Big 12, however that matchup goes, first round, second round, and then get Oregon again as the number one seed in the Final Four?
Mm.
Or would you rather take the bye and then have to beat an eighth, ninth seed, which could be an Alabama, could be a Georgia, could be a Tennessee, could be a Penn State, could be a Notre Dame, and then get to play Oregon again in the Final Four? Which one would you rather have?
I
That
so
is what I've
yeah.
been wrestling with. Now,
Yeah.
a part of me says, all right, let's win it so we can say we won the Big Ten and get the bye.
Yeah.
We need rest. And then because you're going to have to beat Oregon one way or the other.
Yeah.
And if it means you have to beat Oregon after you beat Georgia, or does it mean you have to beat Oregon after you beat Boise and Arizona State? Fill in the blank, whoever.
Yeah.
But
My this is my leaning. I would much rather I would much rather get the buy.
okay,
And the only reason why I agree, like I think the best matchup, like for you, is to get the 5 seed. Like I don't think there's a question because then you get to ramp up a little bit. But for Ohio State in particular, without a bye, it means you will have gone to run the table. You will have gone from when did they play Nebraska? Was it October 20th?
I don't remember.
I'm going to look at the schedule here. October 26th. So they will have had to play like 8 games in a row, and then like it's like 10-day layoffs after that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's well, I guess they'll get a 2-week break from conference championship weekend to the first round of playoffs. So, but I still think I would probably prefer getting the bye. For one, it's what the seniors came back for. They didn't just come back.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm speaking of hypotheticals, and I didn't mean to take over because we were talking about rivalries. Okay.
Yeah. No, you're
Oregon,
good.
Oregon, Washington.
Yeah.
All
Oregon,
right.
Washington. I think that, I don't think I realized how much vitriol there was.
Oh, so it's the closest thing to it's the West Coast version to the game.
Yeah.
There's a ton of similarities. Washington views themselves as being an elitist university, similar to what you have in Ann Arbor. They're pompous, they're arrogant. You have Oregon, who's kind of like more blue collar, high, a flashier Nike money. Very similar to Ohio State. So there's a ton of similarities. In fact, Oregon will tell you that they kind of view themselves as an Ohio State type of university, as more so than the one that we root against. Where Washington, they will compare themselves to the Maize and Blue.
Yeah.
And it's very unique. It's very, very similar. So I will call it the game light, and root for Oregon all day long because of that.
Yeah. It's interesting because Washington, I feel like Washington and the team up north are actually very similar even this year, because Washington, I feel like, has more talent than their record would suggest, but they've like had a disappointing season in my mind. Like no reason why they should have lost to Washington State.
New head coaches. Yep. A little
Yeah.
bit of a roster turnover. Yeah.
Yeah. They were in the national championship game against each other. Like I am curious what would happen. Oregon's already clinched the Big Ten championship berth. What happens if Washington upsets them?
Then they run the risk of losing out that 5th seed if they lose again, possibly.
Yeah.
In the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, because their schedule's not great. Like their schedule,
they have a big home win over Ohio State, which will become the number 1 team.
Yeah, and they beat Boise.
Yep. But that win no matter how good Boise is, that win will never really count for much because let's face it, it's Boise, it's a G5. Which again, they could very well be a top 10 team. They have, I think, in my opinion, if I was going to vote for Heisman, that would be my Heisman vote. It would be
Dylan Gabriel or Ashton Jeanty. Sorry, Jeanty. Yeah. Oh my gosh, he's so good.
I'm sorry. You're not voting for Hunter? No, I'm not. When I've watched that kid play, he is head and shoulders the best kid on the field every time he's played. Yep. Heisman is, to me, Heisman, it should not be, and gosh darn it, I'm sick of quarterbacks winning that award.
Yep.
Give it to the best player in college football.
Yeah.
He's the best one, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'll tell you, we were talking about this Sunday. Another dude who's not a quarterback that should be in New York is Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State.
Yeah, I heard you guys talk about that, and I was like,
dude, he's
5 touchdowns.
That's the one stat, but he's a utility. He has 10 touchdowns overall. Like he just has 5 receiving touchdowns.
Okay.
But I
he didn't do anything against us, bro.
Yeah, well, that's because Franklin took the ball out of his hands.
True. Which is, again, Case in point, why I would not want him to be my head coach.
Yeah. So Washington, Oregon, we both think that Oregon's probably going to win that one. A couple other games that are, the old Oaken Bucket should easily be an Indiana win, but you know, a a great rivalry in the Midwest, right? Like it's often being fought for bowl eligibility. Obviously not this year, but I think is a fun rivalry, and I think Indiana. It's big for Indiana because I think for a while it looked like Purdue was getting the upper hand, right? Like you had Jeff Brom there for a while, and he had some really good teams at Purdue, and you thought maybe Purdue was going to be the one that ascended out of the Hoosier State, and instead it's Coach Siggs has been just, I mean, he's just like, let's light that all on fire. Um, there's a there's a new sheriff in town.
Mm-hmm.
But so not an intriguing game necessarily, but a fun rivalry, and then not a rivalry game, but Rutgers Michigan State has a ton of implications for them for both those programs. Michigan State trying to get to a bowl game, Rutgers trying to improve from a year ago, and actually miraculously could if they get a seventh win. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts about either of those games.
How can I? How can I make more of your listeners mad? That's what.
No. Good night,
uh,
everybody. That's it. I'll see you guys later. No.
Rutgers has been the biggest disappointment for me this season.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really thought that Rutgers was going to make a push for the. I thought what we got from Indiana is what we were going to get from Rutgers.
Yeah.
That was my
Yep.
prediction. I thought they were going to go 11-1 and make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. Um, that it's not a rivalry. It's not between them and
It's not.
Rutgers. Rutgers needs the Big Ten to bring another East Coast team in to be a rival with. And it probably needs to be an old Big East rival for them to really
Yeah.
have a rival. I think Syracuse makes a ton of sense for them for a rival,
Yeah.
you know. Um that so in Michigan State and Penn State has kind of been a rivalry a little bit for them because they both kind of have like Michigan State looks at Michigan as their rival and Penn State looks at Ohio State as their rival. And so it's like, we know you both really want them to be your rival, but they're rivals. So we'll throw you together and make you a rival. And so that kind of
Yeah.
happened a little bit. But it's not. So,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that for Michigan State, their rivals, the in-state opponent, and for Penn State, their biggest rival is us. So,
Yeah.
why try to fight that in any way, shape or form? Indiana, Purdue. I guess. I guess if you're one of the fans of one of those teams, it means something. I know for Dylan it does. Our buddy Dylan, it
Yeah.
means something, I guess. But this year, I, if Purdue can pull off that miracle, then okay, rivalry back on, I guess,
Yeah.
right? But that would be a miracle at this point because Ryan Walters looks like dead man walking on the sideline.
Yeah. I'm amazed he hasn't been fired yet.
I know, especially with
Like,
the rumor.
oh yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. There's oh man. It's not good. It's not good. Yeah. Well, I think that maybe if we can wrap this up, I think there are certainly some games that are like, this isn't really traditional rivalry, but there's a lot of fun games this weekend. And I think it's one of my favorite things about being part of the Big Ten, like being involved in the Big Ten, is like a lot of these games, it's similar to the game, which this is what they prepare for year in, like
Hmm.
week in and week out. Minnesota, Wisconsin, and a lot of these games, not all of them, but each of these games have significant stakes attached to them beyond just the rivalry this year.
Yeah.
Like I think Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, obviously Ohio State and the team up north. I think even you can say that for Illinois Northwestern and USC Notre Dame. Um, I am very intrigued if Lincoln Riley is really on his way out. I think it's a helpful thought that you have that he might be on his way out, but
Can I give you
we'll
one
see.
rivalry I love? It's not in the Big Ten, but I love it, and I don't know why I love it, but I do.
Go for it.
Clemson, South Carolina.
Yeah, say more.
It's like in-state hate, and Dabo's just so easy. He's got the most punchable face in college football, and South Carolina's good now. And for years, Clemson just kind of had their way, but South Carolina is like they're fighting. They're like a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
That program's a fighter, and I just feel like South Carolina's gonna get them. Like,
Yeah.
and I love because usually there's a physical fight in that rivalry. Like, it's a lot of fun because it's so chippy.
Yeah.
Um, it's to me it's one that no one mentions ever, and I'm always like, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good, and I'll tell you another good one. I wish it would they would be in the same conference, and I wish they would play at the end of the year, and that's West Virginia Pitt.
Oh, the backyard brawl.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
that's a
That
good
one's
one.
that one's feisty.
Yeah, that's another.
Oh my
I
goodness.
yeah, that's another good one. Um, uh, Kentucky Louisville. If you live in
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky, and it's a basketball rivalry, but
Yeah.
that's if and I have a lot of family from Kentucky, so they hate Louisville.
Yeah.
Um, that could be a good one.
Yeah. The one I wanted to go, I had a chance to go to it and I didn't end up I wasn't able to go. But the one rivalry game that is a bucket list item for me is Army Navy.
Yeah, it's the coolest, cleanest rivalry there is.
Yeah.
It's
Lot a
it yeah.
ton of mutual respect.
Yep.
Obviously a lot of those they're all going to be doing something
Yeah, and we all know someone who's
meaningful.
either in the Army or in the
Yeah.
Navy, and like their loyalty to their team
Yeah.
and their armed force is like none other, and they can't stand the other one, but yet the respect and love they have because they know they go to war together. Like
Yeah.
it's unique.
Yeah.
It really is.
My two so I had my best friends in high school are identical twins. One went to the Naval Academy and
Get out!
became a SEAL,
Wow.
and the other one was a medic. I think was a medic for a while. And so like I have to root Navy, but like both those teams are good this year too, which is fun. Like I know Army just
Mhm.
got depleted by
Well, so did Navy,
Notre
so
Dame,
against them
so
too. So
but I think that would be a fun, the most respectful
yeah, man,
rivalry.
you're not too far away from that either. You could
No.
hop in a car and go to that one if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I'd be curious when that game is this year. But
It's always the week after. It's the week after conference championships every year.
oh no, yeah, I won't be able to go this year because
It's the Saturday after conference
I have a
championships every year.
I have a team retreat that weekend, so I will not
Ugh.
be at some foot. I'm hoping I'll see how it breaks out.
You think
But
Trump
if
goes to that game even though he won't be inaugurated yet?
oh, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he
Oh,
will.
it's
Yeah.
it feels like the Trumpest thing to do is I'm not president yet, but I'm going to show up to
Yeah.
that game.
I'd imagine Biden and Trump, probably both go. I don't know.
So the over under, will Biden be wearing a MAGA hat if they both are there?
Oh gosh.
If you have any people who are still listening at this point, they either love me or absolutely despise me, Zach. It's one of the two. There's no in between with me, man.
it's, I was gonna move us on. I'm just gonna go. I was we were talking, me and a friend of mine, we were talking about if Penn State hosts a playoff game, that might be a fun game to try to go to, especially if they get an SEC. If they get an SEC team,
Yeah, and
draw.
despite being a Scarlet and Gray fan, man, you guys show up cheering on the Big Ten, man.
Oh yeah, I would wear blue and white all
I
day.
mean, Confederate all the way. Take down the South, man. Take down the South. Union, baby. The
There we go.
Union Blues. Let's go.
Oh man, we're off the rails now. We Civil War reference, politics, Army Day. It's good. Eric, thanks for joining me, man. Where again, we talked about it early in the show, but where can we find you?
Yeah, just anywhere your social media, the OHIO podcast. We have a website, theohiopodcast.com. We write articles. All of our social links are there. We do live shows all the time. We have live shows on Sunday nights, Monday nights, both at 8 o'clock. We call in show on Thursday night at 8 o'clock, and we do the live watches as well during the games. So those are our live shows, and then we do videos in between that too. So we have content uh, every day, normally on our YouTube channel. If you are a podcast listener, just look us up, the OHIO podcast. Download us, give us a 5-star review. It does help us out. We appreciate that. Make sure you give Zach, my buddy Zach here at Big Ten Football Talk, a 5-star review as well. And appreciate it, Zach.
Yeah. Always love talking ball. This is a fun
It's
conversation. So, all right. Well, everybody listening, have a happy Thanksgiving. Make sure
Yes.
you get to connect with family and think about what you're thankful for. We are thankful for you guys. We're thankful that you give us a voice, that you listen to both our reasonable and absurd takes at times. But we love that you guys want to listen to us, and yeah, we're just very grateful. So thanks for listening. Take care. God bless.